Claressa Shields is unraveling in front of the entire internet, and by the end of this breakdown, that statement is going to hit 10 times harder than it does right now. Because what just resurfaced online is not a small clip. It is not a harmless throwback. It is a full-blown detonation, and Claressa Shields walked directly into it with a smile on her face. This is the interview her fanbase spent months trying to bury, the one everyone quietly hoped would stay in the archives, and somebody just dragged it back out into the daylight with the worst possible timing. I hope every single one of you is doing well today, because we are about to sit down and unpack one of the ugliest weeks Claressa Shields has ever had online, and honestly, you already know how this works. Tap that like button. Tap it hard. Share this with the group chat that's already been debating it all week, and let's stand together while we sort through the rubble. This is going to move fast, and it is going to move heavy, so lock in with me right now. So here is the truth nobody in her camp once said out loud. Every single time the public conversation about Claressa Shields turns sour, something else conveniently pops up to redirect the attention. It has happened so many times now that it has stopped being a coincidence and started looking like a strategy. And this week, the Pylon Brigade finally caught up to the pattern. Claressa Shields lost the BET Sportswoman of the Year vote for the second year in a row. Claressa Shields lost the Best Fighter fan-voted trophy at the sports humanitarian ceremony. 2 public votes. 2 public losses. Both of them decided by the same audience she supposedly commands online. And that is where the receipts are on the table, because those results do not lie. Public voting is the one metric a promo team cannot manipulate. You either have the people or the people have quietly moved on. And from the numbers we are looking at right now, the people have voted with their thumbs, their timelines, and their silence. And here is where it turns interesting. Supporters immediately pointed out how loud Claressa Shields was about the voting window on her own platforms. She pushed. She posted. She begged. But the official campaign machinery around her looked like it woke up late every single time. Compare that to how other major boxing promotions operate, and the gap is not subtle. It is embarrassing. The applause section will tell you the votes were rigged. The rest of us can see what actually happened. Claressa Shields is losing the room, and the room is telling her about it in real time. If you have watched any other elite fighter run a proper award campaign this year, you already know what a professional rollout looks like. Coordinated posts, coordinated hashtags, coordinated media hits. Claressa Shields did not get any of that muscle behind her name, and the internet noticed the difference before her team apparently did. Now keep this next part in mind because it matters. The narrative shift did not stop at the awards. Somebody suddenly remembered Alicia Baumgartner. Somebody suddenly reopened the whole Netflix MVP promo mess where Alicia was caught in that VIP situation the whole boxing internet dissected for a week. Somebody suddenly leaked that Alicia has already locked in a competition-based reality show. And if that show hits the way early reports suggest, Alicia is going to be introduced to an audience that dwarfs the boxing bubble Claressa Shields lives inside. And in the exact same news cycle, Laila Ali decides to post a throwback of her own BET award moment. Laila does not do things by accident. Laila is a strategist. Laila is a legacy name. And Laila posting that clip in the middle of Claressa Shields' worst week is not a coincidence. It is a message, and the internet received it loud and clear. When a legacy like Laila Ali quietly reminds the culture what a real boxing crossover legacy looks like, the subtext is louder than the caption ever could be. So Claressa Shields does what Claressa Shields always does when the pressure spikes. She pivots. All of a sudden, after months of pretending Chris Cyborg does not exist, Claressa is willing to entertain the Cyborg conversation again. All of a sudden the biggest names she has been dodging are back in her mouth. Critics are not falling for it. They are calling it exactly what it is, a distraction tactic dressed up as a challenge. When things are going smoothly, Cyborg is invisible. When the headlines turn ugly, Cyborg becomes a headline generator. That is not competitive strategy. That is public relations strategy, and there is a very big difference. Cyborg has been calling Claressa Shields out for years, and for years Claressa Shields did not have 5 seconds to spare for a response. Now the awards vote goes sideways and suddenly Cyborg is worth a paragraph. That timing is not accidental. That timing is choreographed. And then the fans started noticing something even sneakier. Claressa Shields' training footage lately has been coming out of gyms that look, well, ordinary. Regular. Nothing like the luxury facilities her camp was proudly parading a few months ago. Some viewers waved it off. Others turned it into a full forensic thread. What happened to the big money setup? What happened to the sponsorships that were supposed to be flooding in after the last fight? What happened to the "we're changing the game" energy that Claressa Shields was selling on every timeline just weeks ago? Nobody has answered those questions, and in the vacuum, the theories are multiplying. That is what happens when you brand yourself around luxury. The moment the luxury disappears, everybody notices. And once the audience starts asking where the money went, no amount of highlight reel editing can pull that question back into the bottle. Now, with everything on the record now, one thing is impossible to ignore. Everything Claressa Shields spent the last year showcasing, the wealth, the wins, the relationship, the empire, is being publicly re-examined in real time, and the verdict from the audience is not kind. And the second the pressure hit critical mass, the story swung right back to the man everyone knew it would swing back to: Papoose. Because Papoose is the gravitational center of every Claressa Shields news cycle now, whether her camp likes it or not. Not the fights. Not the belts. Not the training. Papoose. And that is a devastating admission for an athlete who was supposed to be the greatest of all time in her sport. When the personal life eats the professional life on a weekly basis, that is not fame anymore. That is entanglement. And Claressa Shields is caught inside it. Every headline that should be about her hands, her jab, her footwork, her ring IQ, is instead about the man standing next to her at award shows. That is not a career trajectory. That is a redirect. Let's cut to what actually matters. A couple of weeks back, Claressa Shields told her followers to stop asking why Papoose was not on her live streams. She said not to worry about it. She said he was busy. She said the two of them did not need to be attached at the hip during camp. But longtime followers pulled up the old clips instantly, because Claressa Shields spent months telling everybody that she and Papoose were always together, that he was just off camera by choice. Two completely different explanations. Same couple. Same relationship. Same person telling the story. And the internet is not a fool. When your explanations start contradicting your older explanations, people notice. When the older explanations get louder every time the new ones come out, people notice even harder. Papoose being busy with work is the new line. Claressa Shields not wanting company during camp is the new line. Claressa Shields joking that she would not want to deal with her own energy right now is the new line. Supporters are letting all of it slide. Critics are stacking every new statement next to every old one and asking a single question. Which version is true? Because both cannot be. And when a public relationship starts leaking inconsistencies at this rate, the highlight reel defenders can only carry the story so far before it collapses under its own weight. That is exactly why the old BET Awards interview started making the rounds again this week. Somebody somewhere decided the timing was perfect. And they were not wrong. Because that clip, viewed today, hits completely different from the way it hit the day it dropped. Let me walk you through what actually happens in it, because this is the part everyone is losing their minds over. Claressa Shields is standing next to Papoose on the BET carpet. She is upbeat. She is bright. She is doing that thing she does where she introduces herself with the whole spiritual tapped-in bit. Papoose is standing there, and if you slow the clip down, his eyes are locked on her the entire time in a way that reads more like confusion than affection. Some viewers even joked that Papoose looked like he had just been handed a script he had not rehearsed. And then the interviewer asks the question that would go on to break the internet a second time. What has each of you taught the other about love and success? A simple question. A softball. The kind of question a couple like Claressa Shields and Papoose should be able to answer with their eyes closed. Claressa Shields pauses. She hesitates. And then she launches into an answer that has become the most dissected sentence of her entire year online. She says she has taught Papoose to be confident, to be cocky, to not be ashamed of his gift. She says he is the best at what he does for a reason, and she has, quote, rubbed that off on him. Read that back. Read it back one more time. Because that is exactly where the wheels started coming off the wagon. Longtime hip-hop fans immediately pushed back, and honestly, they had every right to. Papoose has been Papoose since the mid-2000s. Papoose was cocky before Claressa Shields was on a national broadcast. Papoose was confident when Remy Ma was still fighting to get home. That level of self-belief was baked into Papoose long before Claressa Shields entered the picture. The idea that Claressa Shields somehow installed confidence into a rapper who spent 2 decades bragging on wax about being the best pen alive is, to put it politely, historically inaccurate. Papoose has always carried himself like the throne was his. Anybody who watched the love and hip-hop era knows this. Anybody who watched him hold down that family unit knows this. Papoose did not need a confidence transplant. He needed a bigger platform, and Claressa Shields, whether the fans like it or not, provided one. That is the trade nobody in her camp wants labeled out loud, but the audience has already labeled it and printed the receipt. And that is where the sympathy for Claressa Shields starts leaking out. Because critics online are now openly saying that Papoose was not remade by this relationship. Papoose was remarketed by it. The confidence was already there. The pen was already there. The presence was already there. Claressa Shields did not build Papoose. Claressa Shields amplified Papoose. And the audience is quietly making a distinction the couple's camp does not want made. Then Papoose gets his turn to answer the same question, and this is the part one need everybody to actually pay attention to. Papoose does not answer the question. Papoose does not say what he has taught Claressa Shields about love. Papoose does not say what he has taught Claressa Shields about success. Papoose talks about how much he enjoys being loved by Claressa Shields. He talks about how she is not afraid to show her love in public. He talks about her being the greatest of all time. And then he pivots, quickly, seamlessly, professionally, into promoting her next fight at State Farm Arena. Rewind that in your head. Papoose was asked what he taught his partner. Papoose answered by describing what his partner does for him. That is not the same question. That is not even the same category of answer. And this is exactly where critics are pouncing right now, because the contrast between Claressa Shields' answer and Papoose's answer is, honestly, cinematic. She talks about giving. He talks about receiving. She talks about lessons. He talks about attention. She talks about growth. He talks about promotion. 2 people. 2 answers. 2 completely different emotional postures. And here's where it turns really uncomfortable. That whole segment ends with the 2 of them plugging her upcoming fight card like the interviewer had just asked about box office instead of about love. To a lot of viewers, that transition is the whole giveaway. The moment the question got personal, the couple defaulted straight back to promotion. That is not the behavior of 2 people building something private. That is the behavior of 2 people running a business. And once the internet clocks the business, the romance narrative never fully recovers. Now watch what happens the moment that clip re-enters the timeline. Spiritual World reposts it. The reposts multiply. The stitches multiply. The commentary channels sharpen their knives. And the comment sections turn into war zones. Because the original interview created questions that never got answered. And this week those questions are being asked again with fresh eyes and a colder audience. Claressa Shields is being asked why her contribution to the relationship sounds like it was mostly optics. Papoose is being asked why he could not spend 3 sentences describing what he brings to the table. And the couple's supporters are being asked a much harder question. How many more of these viral inconsistencies are you willing to defend before you admit the pattern is real? Meanwhile, other old clips are being pulled off the shelf and dusted off. There is one making the rounds where Claressa Shields and Papoose were asked about the meaning of black music. Papoose gave a long, layered, detailed answer. Claressa Shields looked, to put it charitably, caught off guard. That clip is now being edited side by side with the BET interview, and the split screen is brutal. It creates the impression, fairly or unfairly, that these 2 are having 2 different conversations in the same interview, every single time. That perception is the enemy of any public couple. And once that perception locks in, it does not unlock easily. There is another moment critics keep replaying. In that same BET interview, Claressa Shields cannot seem to remember how many BET Awards she and Papoose have attended together. It is a small moment. A blink and you miss it moment. But the internet does not blink anymore. The internet freezes the frame. The internet captions the frame. The internet turns the frame into content. And a woman who cannot remember how many red carpets she has shared with her partner becomes, overnight, a meme about how real the relationship actually is. That single frame has more replays this week than some of her fight highlights, and that fact alone should tell you where the center of gravity has moved. Then you factor in the timeline nobody in her camp will comment on. Critics keep circling back to the fact that Claressa Shields herself has previously acknowledged pursuing this relationship while Papoose was still legally attached to somebody else. Every time she goes on a platform to reframe the story, that older admission gets pulled right back to the top of the feed. The internet has archives now. The internet has receipts now. The internet has patience, and the internet is using every ounce of it to fact-check every soft-focus interview Claressa Shields drops. That is the environment Claressa Shields is operating inside. That is the audience she is trying to charm. And it is not working. So now stack everything on top of each other. Stack the 2 lost public votes. Stack the Alicia Baumgartner resurgence. Stack the Layla Ali throwback timing. Stack the sudden cyborg pivot. Stack the disappearing luxury gyms. Stack the contradicting Papoose statements. Stack the resurfaced BET interview. Stack the split screens of the couple looking out of sync. Stack the missing answers. Stack the deleted comments under every post. Stack all of it, and then ask yourself an honest question. Does this look like a woman at the peak of her career? Or does this look like the Reputation assembly line finally running out of parts? I am not going to sit here and tell you the answer. I am going to let you sit with the receipts and decide. But I will say this, and I will say it plainly. Every time Claressa Shields has been given a public microphone in the last 12 months, the microphone has left her with a worse image than she picked it up with. Every time Papoose has been given a public microphone in the last 12 months, the microphone has left him looking like the man being managed instead of the man managing. Whether that is by accident, by design, or by exhaustion, none of us know. But the pattern is not going away, and the internet is not letting it go. And let's be honest about one more thing before we close this out. The reason this story keeps getting recycled is not because the internet is bored. The reason this story keeps getting recycled is because Claressa Shields herself keeps opening the door for it. Every stream, every interview, every training clip, every softball question that turns into a landmine. Every time she tries to control the narrative escapes her hands and rewrites itself in public. That is not a fan problem. That is not a media problem. That is a positioning problem. And positioning problems are the hardest problems in the entire celebrity ecosystem to fix, because you cannot fix them by posting harder. You fix them by being quieter. And Claressa Shields has never been quiet a day in her life. To the fans who have been in the comments defending her every step of the way, I hear you. I see you. This is not a hit piece on Claressa Shields as a fighter. Claressa Shields is a decorated athlete. Nobody is disputing that. But sports greatness and public perception are 2 entirely different scoreboards. You can be the greatest of all time inside the ropes and still be losing the culture war outside of them. And right now, Claressa Shields is winning one and losing the other, and that gap is starting to matter more than the belts. Because once a public figure loses the culture, sponsors follow. Once sponsors follow, opportunities follow. Once opportunities follow, legacy follows. That is how these things dominoes fall, and Claressa Shields is watching the first tiles wobble in real time. To Papoose, because I know some of the audience wants a word aimed his way too, the confusion is not going to lift until the answers start matching. Right now, the answers do not match. The old story does not match the new story. The old interviews do not match the new interviews. The old energy does not match the new energy. And silence at this stage is not the neutral move people think it is. Silence is a statement. Silence is a signal. And the audience is reading it. Every time Papoose stays quiet while a new clip goes viral, the story writes itself around him instead of through him, and that is a position no artist with his catalog should be sitting in this deep into his career. The receipts are on the table. The public vote spoke twice. The old interview came back. The pivot to cyborg is showing. The training footage is downgrading. The couple's answers are diverging. And every single one of these threads is being pulled at the same time by an internet that has finally decided to stop playing along. This is not a wave that a Sunday morning apology post is going to calm. This is not a moment a coordinated tabloid feature is going to smooth over. This is a full-blown perception collapse in slow motion, and the only people not seeing it are the ones being paid to look the other way. So tell me what you actually think in the comments and do not hold back. Tell me if you believe Claressa Shields is still in control of her own story. Tell me if you believe Papoose is going to break his silence or double down on it. Tell me if you think Layla Ali's throwback was accidental or absolutely surgical. Tell me if the cyborg conversation is a real challenge or a beautifully timed distraction. And tell me who you think comes out of this month with their public image still intact, because from where I am sitting, that list is getting shorter by the day. Drop your verdict, drop your receipts, drop your predictions. I read every single one, and the sharpest takes are getting pinned in the next breakdown. If this breakdown gave you something new to think about, hit that like button so the algorithm keeps pushing this to people who actually want the full picture instead of the polished one. Subscribe if you have not already, because there is another chapter of this story dropping the moment the next fight card lands, and you already know we are covering every angle of it. And before you close the tab, grab whatever's lined up next on your screen, because trust me, the receipts are only getting louder from here.